I do think the SBR is going to happen. It's like a starting gun on nation state level adoption. Other nations are going to go out and start their own strategic Bitcoin reserves. And Larry Fink is literally up there saying that sovereign wealth funds are asking him, should we do a 2% allocation or a 5% allocation to Bitcoin? They're not saying Bitcoin's a scam, Bitcoin's a fucking piece of shit, Bitcoin's fake gold internet money. They're saying 2 or 5%, Larry. What do you think? It's just a totally new paradigm. So sovereign wealth funds, nation states, they're going to take this thing a lot higher. And I think there's a lot of forward momentum and positive catalysts to look forward to. And I don't think a bull market really will end until there's nothing left on the roadmap to look forward to.
Yo, what's up, dude?
What's up,
good
man?
To see you again.
Good to see you, buddy.
To see you thriving. Man, one of the things that I love about
thriving, bro. When I first met you, you weren't even a podcaster guy. You know what I mean?
Know, right? Bitcoin does things. Bro, one of the things I love about you, man, are your inspirational posts. It used to be on X, now it's mostly on Nostr.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so useful, bro. Like I now I've been in Bitcoin 9 years, but in the in the early eras, man, they really helped me a lot, and I really appreciate them. So if anyone hasn't seen Hodl's Nostr posts, I highly recommend them. But one of the things that I think you have on your Twitter banner is the 3 green, 1 red.
Yes.
And we are in the last green before the red. Do you think cycles are still a thing?
I mean, listen, I think that it behooves you to think of cycles as still being a thing. Yes, because the expectation, you should have a constant expectation that there's a brutal, horrible bear market that's coming for you any minute now. And if you don't get it, then it's like, cool, that's awesome. We didn't get a brutal, horrible bear market. So you want to be like pleasant. You want to set yourself up to be pleasantly surprised, right? But like as a Bitcoiner who has a lot of scar tissue and PTSD from the years of being a Bitcoiner, I would say I'm pretty much planning on there being some sort of a brutal bear market drawdown. And if we don't get it, it'd be fun. It'd be great. It'd be cool. It'd be a new era. But right now, that's my baseline assumption.
Yeah, man. And I would guess the question for you, Hodl, is, one of the things that you've mentioned in the past, and it was, again, one of these epic posts that you make, which is the class of 2021 has been poorly treated, has been mistreated. And it was like kind of like this lackluster. It was just this. It was like kind of a bull market, but then there was the China mining ban, and we didn't really get this blow off top.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the numbers. We haven't had a blow off top since 2017, and this year and last year, I'm getting 2016, 2017 vibes in this bull market, and I think people are not prepared. And Bitcoin's doing exactly the same thing that it did in early 2017. The difference now, though, is Trump's in office, right? It looks like this SBR thing might happen. Of course, Michael Saylor's killing it on the institutional level. What are your thoughts, man? Is the fun of Bitcoin gone? Is it over? Are we ever going to get these crazy blow off tops ever again?
Yeah, good question. Okay, so I do think, let's take it a couple things at a time. Like, I do think the SBR is going to happen. I have a high degree of confidence in that, but I think it's going to be weak form SBR, or some people call it SBR Lite, which is just a rebranding of the coins that the American government already holds that don't have any title. So the coins that they hold that basically are from criminals who no one is coming forth to claim, because it would mean admitting you did a criminal act and you end up in jail for 12 years like Ross Ulbricht, right? So those are the coins the U.S. government holds. I think it's the easiest lift in the world to just rename those coins and call them strategic Bitcoin reserve, right? And so a lot of people are saying, well, that's not a real strategic Bitcoin reserve, and if we get that, that doesn't really count. But I think it does count, and I have a high degree of confidence that that will happen. Like I would say, pretty damn near 100% confidence that that will happen. Number one, because it doesn't cost the U.S. government anything. It's a campaign promise. It helps Trump, support like sort of the people that supported him, the Bitcoiners and the crypto lobby, broadly. And if you look at Trump's first actions first 3 days in office, he's been really like keeping his campaign promises. Basically, anything that was a campaign promise, he's just doing via executive order. And I think that's the way the SBR happens, is via executive order. So I expect that, and I think it will still be a big deal, even though there's probably not going to be any net new buying or minimal net new buying from it. And the reason it'll be a big deal is because it's like a starting gun on nation state level adoption. And so other nations are going to go out and, start their own strategic Bitcoin reserves in order to, not be outcompeted by the US, or to be able to be in a position when the US changes the hegemonic state. Larry Fink was at Davos recently, which, by the way, I was been watching some of the coverage out of Davos, which normally I watch it and cringe. And this year is no exception. I cringe also, but they've never had more pro Bitcoin content than they had coming out of Davos. And Larry Fink is literally up there saying that sovereign wealth funds are asking him, should we do a 2% allocation or a 5% allocation to Bitcoin? They're not saying Bitcoin's a scam, Bitcoin's a fucking piece of shit, Bitcoin's fake gold, internet money. They're saying 2 or 5%, Larry. What do you think? And I mean, that's just a totally new paradigm. So sovereign wealth funds, nation states, et cetera. Yeah, I mean, they're going to take this thing a lot higher. And I think there's a lot of forward momentum and positive catalysts to look forward to. And I don't think a bull market really will end until, we get over that, until there's nothing left on the roadmap to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what would you say? And the videos at Davos have been incredible. You have I saw the CEO of UBS, CEO of a Bank of America, basically look, we don't really like this thing, but we don't really have a choice. The regulatory environment in the United States is changing. For whatever reason, people really like this thing. We can't help it. And the things you were saying earlier, the things that would normally come out of Davos was central bank digital currencies, all the most horrific ideas. You'll own nothing and be happy. And all of a sudden it becomes a semi Bitcoin conference, which is absolutely hilarious. But do you think, because again, at these prices, Hodl, it's so difficult, I guess, to 2x, because it's a lot easier to 2x from 1K to 2K. A 2x right now would bring us over 200,000. Do you think that's even possible within a year? Do you think a 2 or 3 or 4x is possible, or do you believe into this idea of the whole diminishing returns narrative?
Yeah, so I don't believe in diminished returns. I think that we could see diminished returns, or something that looks like diminished returns, and then people would say, well, oh, see, diminished returns are real. But at any point in time, the world can sort of wake up to Bitcoin and begin to bid the Bitcoin price massively. And so, I mean, there's a lot of things to say here, but I think one thing that you could say here is there's this idea of power law, for instance, that there's going to be this slow, gradual transition state while the world Bitcoinizes. And I'm somewhat sympathetic to that idea, because I do think that hyper Bitcoinization, which is basically the Bitcoin side of a hyperinflationary event, I think is unlikely to occur anytime in the near future. So we're not going to have this rapid transition between fiat currency and Bitcoin, at least in the next maybe 10 years, or at least I can't see that now. Maybe it happens, but I can't see it. So I'm sympathetic to the idea that the power law, or just the idea of slow, gradual change in Bitcoinization is occurring, and that would go along with the idea of diminished returns, right? But I also think there's this idea of a phase transition, which is the antithesis to the power law idea, and it's broader than just hyper Bitcoinization, which is hyper Bitcoinization is just about hyperinflation of the currency. But a phase transition, if you think about it as like the moment when water goes from a liquid to a solid, it freezes to ice, that happens extremely rapidly, right? That's a phase transition. But over time, there's a lot of energy built up before that rapid transition occurs. And so I also am sympathetic to the idea that we're building this momentous energy in Bitcoin, and there's some sort of a phase transition out there that is equivalent to water freezing to ice. But what we don't know is the freezing point. We don't know at what temperature, so to speak, Bitcoin suddenly captures the hearts and minds and attention of all global capital market participants. And then the bid goes basically parabolic overnight. we don't know if or when that happens. But if you're a Bitcoiner and you've been around for a while, you kind of feel what I'm saying is like it's out there in the distance somewhere. We just don't know the transition state. You know, we don't
Yeah,
know the inciting incident that will cause it to occur.
but we know
So
it's coming.
yeah. So this is kind of a complicated way to say like I think diminished returns is the law of the land until it's not.
Hmm.
And I think that there's a potential that this time around, um, we take out the diminished returns, sort of hypothesis here. And it's going to look chaotic if that happens. So let's just go through the scenario real quick. Um, Everybody's expecting a diminished return cycle top somewhere around like the 250K range. That could be 180K on the low side, could be like 340K on the high side, something like that, but somewhere in that range. I think that you might see a massive wave of selling there, and then it will seemingly confirm the diminished returns hypothesis. Like, because if we go to like let's say 260, and then we fall back to like 140, people are gonna be like, "See, this was it. It's over. Bull market's over. I sold. I'm a genius. You're all idiots." Blah 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 blah. Right? And then what's gonna happen, I think, or what could happen, is that the market starts to bid, and the market starts to bid and bid and bid, and it goes back to 260, and then it's at 360, and then it's at 4, right? And then the people that sold, who were all of a sudden taking victory laps saying, "I'm a genius," are going, "I'm sidelined. This is the moment. The phase transition is occurring. Hyper Bitcoinization is occurring. I got to pile back in." And then they pile back in, and that takes us up to 7, 8, 9, a million, right? Somewhere in that range. Um, that's where you get the parabolic, the FOMO. This kind of happened in 2017. People started selling around 10K, and then it quickly became obvious that 10K, like within like a day or two, it became obvious that 10K was just not the right level to sell at, and a lot of people piled back into their positions, and it quickly took us to 20. I think you could see the same sort of thing play out. So
Yeah.
don't know that that's going to happen, but I wouldn't bet against that happening.
Yeah, and I agree. I have that feel. Maybe it's because I've been in this for a while, but I have that feeling, right? That this it's very, and you know why I have that feeling, Hodl, is because the mass narrative, the consensus this cycle around is exactly what you said: 150K to 250K. You and I both know that Bitcoin does the exact effing opposite of what everyone thinks. And if the general consensus is 150K to 250K, everyone's going to, exactly what you said, they're going to think they're smart as hell because they're going to be, oh, it's 200. We're going to sell. This thing's going to crash to 70K. We'll buy back in. No, but Bitcoin does the exact opposite. So is it going to do the exact opposite towards the lower end? I don't think so. Or is it going to do the exact opposite to the upper end? Maybe. The thing is, we have not experienced this for so long, we forgot what this feels
Yeah,
like
yeah.
as a community, so
I think that's
well,
another thing. That's another similarity to. I was going over the similarities to 2017, because I was feeling very much like this was the beginning of 2017. I came in the end of 14, so I was already here in the beginning of 17. A lot of our Bitcoin friends came in during 17 because that was a big hype cycle. So a lot of people joined like mid-year, and they were new and they didn't know what was going on and whatever. But I remember watching it form, and the similarities between then and now are actually kind of interesting. And one of the similarities was the longer and harder a bear market has been, the more selling you see around all-time highs. And now we're not really at 69K. We're not at the all-time high, but we're kind of at right around the inflation adjusted all-time high. And so, you see a lot of this selling because people's net worths are now back where they were before they went through this calamitous bear market. And what happens to people in these bear markets is they go, "Fuck, I'm so stupid. I should have sold. I should have bought that house. I should have bought that car. I should have taken that vacation. I should have quit my job. Why didn't I do this? I was so rich. Now I'm so poor." And they spend 3 years like, basically self-flagellating and say beating themselves up. And they get so fixated on the things they should have, could have, would have done that when the high prices come back around, they end up doing those things, right? So that's one. We're seeing a lot of sluggishness in the price around this level because of, I think, selling, which is connected to the psychology of the bear market. The second thing that's similar is um, people's expectations for 2017 were very low. So when we came into the year, I was telling people that we were going to 2,700 when we were sitting around 800 or so, which seemed to be like kind of a bullish prediction. It was like moderately bullish, but when you look at it, when you look at that year and what ended up occurring, I was wildly off the mark by almost 10x, right? So that's pretty nuts that like it did things that nobody expected it to do. The other thing too is like we fought the whole year for these, different price levels. You basically each 1K up was like a real fight. And in the middle of the bull run we probably got stuck somewhere around 4K, and then we like collapsed, and a lot of people were thinking it was over, right? So that was kind of that diminished returns narrative that we were talking about. Like people were just like, 4K and then done. And I know a lot of people that actually sold around the 4K level and thought they had done very well, and it turns out that they hadn't, right? And then I think also another similarity with 2017 is that we had a lot of new market entrants, and we have that every bull run. Obviously, bull runs bring people in, but I'm starting to see more and more new people than ever before. So I think like again, there's a lot of similarities. Not saying that it's going to be exactly like 2017, which would indicate a $2 million Bitcoin price. I think that history rhymes, but it doesn't repeat. Like these are just it's always kind of similar in terms of vibes, but it's never exactly the same. So don't like trade on this information. The plan is still to buy Bitcoin and hodl that Bitcoin. But if you're looking out at like, where you might be able to take a little bit of living expenses for the next 4 years, you might be able to take your family on that vacation, like probably wait. I don't know. I think my personal opinion is if you wait another like 10 months, 11 months, you're going to have a lot better, get a lot better value for those things, but we'll see.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. But yes, to echo what you're saying, I 100% feel those vibes, man. And I'm class of 2016, and I am getting 2017 esque vibes. But I don't know. We'll wait and see. Doesn't matter if you just stay humble, stack sats, stay solvent. But one of the things also, Paul, that I want to talk about too, which is you created this legendary meme, which is, 6.15 eternal riches. And we're on YouTube, but you guys can complete the sentence. And, that might seem out of reach for many, many people now, right? You've been saying this for years. So, you gave a lot of people a lot of time. I think you got a lot of people to to those numbers and to at least hit or set a goal which was achievable. Now that time is gone. Now we're at $100,000 Bitcoin, 6.15, more than $500,000 for the everyday person is just unfeasible, right? Bitcoin now is more than the average yearly salary of an American, right? What should be the goal now? What should be the goal? And I'll give add a secondary question. Are people too late to Bitcoin, man? Are people too late to benefit from it?
So let's take that one first. I think my answer here is absolutely not. And I know that like there's a bunch of people who hear me say that and they go, "Oh yeah, look at this guy who got it so early. It's so easy for him to say that. He's just looking for exit liquidity. He wants to dump on you, blah blah blah." But I believe that. All my net worth is in Bitcoin because I believe that. I still believe we're early. And if I thought we had peaked or whatever, I would sell out and go into real estate or tech stocks or equities or something. So I believe that I'm positioned in that way, and I think that Bitcoin has 1,000x further to go, which indicates a price of $100 million, which is a crazy number. But we're at $100,000, and when I first started buying at 200, $100,000 seemed fucking crazy too, and it was, and now it's real. So Bitcoin, makes impossible things possible. On the 6.15 thing, I want to say just shout out to the 6.15 guys, proud of you guys at $162,603. I think they are millionaires, right? So there's this like Jay-Z line I think about where he goes, I done made more millionaires than the lotto did. And I'm going to feel proud of that fact when we hit 162,600. Like I actually literally like helped make more millionaires than the lottery did. That's pretty cool. And there's a lot further for those guys to go. I mean, if you take my implied price of 6.1 or 100 million times 6.15, it's $615 million. So you got to keep hodling. A million is not the goal. A million is not the goal, my friends. For the new people who are thinking like these are big numbers, like, in order to get 6.15 Bitcoin, you got to have like $630,000 or something at this moment in time. I'm definitely not insinuating that the average person should make that their goal, because $600,000 liquid capital is like something that even rich people don't have. So don't feel bad if that's not something you have. You got to do what you can where you are with what you have available to you. And I think if I was a young guy coming in right now, I had missed it over the last 10 years. My goal would probably be one Bitcoin. And that's a high goal. Again, it's very hard to get to $100,000, but the price is only going to continue to run away from you. And so I would be thinking to myself, what can I do to get that first Bitcoin, that first $100,000? And I'll tell you this, like, people talk about their first million a lot, like, oh, when I made my first million or whatever. From 100,000 to a million, you don't really remember it. It's not that meaningful. But your first $100,000,
Mm-hmm.
I remember everything I did to earn that money. I remember every fucking shitty job I took, every shitty person who I had to fucking endure yelling at me or bossing me around. I remember, literally like sleeping in, shitty places on the floor. Like I remember all of it, right? I remember scratching and saving for each $1,000. I remember going up to Reno for the weekend to make $700, and right. I remembered it all. It's like it was meaningful to me. And so that first 100K, that first Bitcoin, tough, hard, really hard. You got to scratch for it, you got to claw for it, but it is doable. You can make it. And I think that would be my goal if I was new.
Yo, I want to tell you about the best place to build your automatic self custody Bitcoin stack. I'm talking about bitcoinwell.com. What makes bitcoinwell.com different is that it's a completely non custodial platform, meaning as soon as you buy Bitcoin and the funds clear, it goes straight to your self custody Bitcoin wallet address. And that perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. Support Bitcoin on ramps that are self custody by default. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com today. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to sign up, and bada bing, bada boom, you're ready to buy Bitcoin. Yeah, and I think it's an ambitious goal, but it's a goal that I truly believe this because and again, one of the I love I love your posts, Hodl, because you're so open about the struggles that you went through in order to get to that point. And the reason that I think resonates with me and resonates with so many people is because most of humanity if you're trying to make it, like if you're trying to succeed in life, whether it's building a business or building whatever, you're going to go through heartbreak, betrayal, letdowns, victories, defeats. Like
Yep.
it is brutal. And what I love about your post, man, is that you're very open about that struggle. And I think that resonates with a lot of people because I would say most people are not open about the struggle. They kind of hide behind it in a
Mm.
way. Now, and I think what you were saying earlier is so spot on in terms of trying to reach that one Bitcoin goal, but also with the caveat of like what you're going to have to get, what you're going to have to go through in order to achieve that goal is going to be hell on earth.
Yeah.
However, once you achieve it or get close to achieving it, let's say you can't manage to get a Bitcoin, but you manage to get half or 0.75 in 5 or 10 years, all the floors you had to mop, all the things that you went through, all the BS, all the heartaches, all the very dark moments that you went through, it will all come to the front of your mind and you'll realize that all of that was worth it and it made you the person that you are today.
Yeah.
And again, Hodl, that message, I don't think anyone else has been able to convey it and humanize it as much as you have.
Dude, it's so true. And honestly, I know it because I live it. Right? It's not like I have some wisdom that comes to me from on high. I just live this shit, and then I'm honest about what's going on. Um, I think I've said this thing before, which is that all of the pain, and the struggle and the sacrifice, one day, if you do the right things, one day it just becomes a funny story you tell at fancy parties. It's like me and Nico can laugh about it. We're like at Sailor's Mansion, like and somebody's serving me champagne on a silver tray. It's weird, but it happens, man. And I think the place that a lot of people are in is that first step. Um, that there's a quote I love by Customato, who was Mike Tyson's trainer when he was very young, and he basically said the hero and the coward feel the same fear, and it's how they respond to it that defines them, right? So like feeling the fear, feeling negatively, feeling pain, feeling the struggle. The reason I'm open about them is because they don't define you. They don't make you into a coward. They don't make you into the person that feels the fear. In fact, the person that feels no fear and does the thing that requires fear, um, it's not as impressive as the person who feels a lot of fear and pushes themselves to have the courage to do the thing
Mhm.
that requires, that you endure that fear. And so yeah, I mean, you're gonna on the hodling journey. I've been doing it 10 years now, and I'm all in. So I experience, the full breadth and width of it. You're gonna experience every different type of emotion, and you're gonna feel more more euphoric than you've ever felt. You're gonna feel more depressed than you've ever felt. You're gonna cry. You're gonna puke. You're gonna be sad. You're gonna scream at people. You're gonna be angry. You're gonna rage. Like all the emotions. Like life goes from dull, gray, monotone, meaningless to full color. And you just have all the emotions of life again. And again, it's what you do that defines you, right? So, like, a hodler is simply somebody who hodls Bitcoin. That's it. You don't have to be a Zen Buddhist monk about it. You don't have to have a perfect emotional state. You don't even have to be that good at hodling, honestly. Like, you can make some mistakes. You can sell a little bit of Bitcoin. You can fuck up. You can trade a little bit. You can do stupid shit. And as long as you're still hodling that core position for a long period of time, no matter what emotions you went through, what the storm or the turmoil was like, you are a hodler, my friend. You did it. And I think the thing that most people, normal people, are scared of is that first step, the fear. Like what are people going to say about me? What are they going to think about me? It's going to be embarrassing. What if I fail? Everyone's going to laugh at me. Like everyone's going to say you're stupid. You shouldn't have done that. What if I actually believe in this thing and it hurts me or it harms me or I lose time, I lose money, I lose status? Those are the things that keep people from taking the first step. And in order to actually like make something of yourself in this life and do something meaningful, like you have to be willing to risk embarrassment and ridicule. I actually prefer when people are mocking me. I've gotten used to it at this point, so like I feel like I still have my edge then. And when people are congratulating me and being like, oh, you're such a big success, it makes me deeply uncomfortable. But in the beginning, I was scared of, just like everyone else, I was very scared of mockery and embarrassment and failure. And I felt like if I failed, I was worthless as a person and people wouldn't love me and I wouldn't have status and I wouldn't be secure or safe. And those things are going to come up for you. And you have to just, you know, most of your life is on autopilot. You're just going through life. You're not thinking about things that much, right? Like, yeah, you're always asking people, or like people ask people, like, why didn't you invest in Bitcoin or whatever? And they go, oh, I didn't like it because it's this or that. The truth is, like, they have no idea. They're asleep. They're on autopilot. Like, they don't know why they don't like Bitcoin or why they didn't invest in Bitcoin or why whatever. They just are asleep. And there are these moments in life that jostle you awake. All right. Like maybe one of them is listening to this douchebag on this podcast today. All right. And like you can go, wait, what the fuck? But most of life is like you're driving down a highway and you're in that highway hypnosis state. And only every once in a while do you hit the bumps on the road and go, oh
Mm.
shit, I'm driving a car this whole time. And then you go, wait, where am I heading? Where am I going? Where does this road lead? Why don't I just pull off at this intersection and see what happens? Right. And the road is made of dirt and it's not paved and it leads to nowhere and there's no signage. Where am I going? That's scary. But every once in a while, people wake up and they do take that road. They do take that path. They do change their life. And you can be one of those people. But when this moment comes to you, you can't let it slip by. There's only so many of these moments in life where you suddenly wake up and you go, oh shit, reality is malleable. I can push on it. I can pull on it. I can change it. I can make a dent in the universe. This experience is temporary. And you only have a finite amount of time to get the fuck after it, to be relentless, to change things, to make meaningful progress, right? To leave your dent in the universe. There's only so much time to do that, man. especially if you're like halfway through your life, you're middle age, it's gone. More than half of your life is gone. And your perceptual life, because time goes slower when we're younger, it's more than half over. It's like 75% of the way over because time is speeding up as you go because of relativity. So, like, the time to do it is fucking right now. You have to get off your ass and do the thing that you're most afraid of. And if you can do that and you can endure it, which I promise you can have a good life.
American Hodl, man. Absolute freaking legend, bro. I can't believe you're here. Anyways, dude. Okay, so that was beautiful. That was like a Noster post, but in real life, over a podcast. Okay. So you were saying some things earlier on, which is if you're enduring this, you go through this, you pay your dues, right? This is cycle number 3 for me. And you get to a certain point where, you look at your stack and you're comfortable and you could do things. You posted about this the other day.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do you start living? At what point you've been living below your means, you've been stacking, you've been disciplined. At what point do you get the house? At what
Yeah.
point do you take that vacation? At what point do you, take your family to Disneyland or, spoil your wife on something? At what point?
Yeah, totally. I have good advice for this, which is number one, during the bull market this time around, you're going to be, if you're hodling and you've been hodling, you're going to be richer than you've ever been before, most likely, right? And you're going to be tempted to do stuff. You're going to be, sometimes often my fingers drift on the keyboard and I find myself on the Porsche 911 configurator website and I build out the most baller Porsche 911 one can possibly build out. And I
Turbo.
don't buy it, but I like to build it a lot. I've probably built this thing like 30 times over and over again, right? And so you're gonna find yourself you'll know we're in the in the peak of the bull market when you find yourself on Zillow looking at private islands and you're like, this one doesn't even have a runway. Where am I gonna land the jet? Huh? Like what dumb. Uh so I think when you start feeling that way, I think you should hodling is a long, hard journey, so you should treat yourself a little bit. And what I would do is I would just rent experiences. So if you want a fucking baller car, dude, go on Turo or something and rent one for the day, the week, whatever. Like go see what it is to drive like a really sick car. I did this last time around when we were in the bull run. I was getting the itch to buy a Porsche 911. And so I went and I rented one and I rented a Lambo and I rented a whatever, a Ferrari and an Audi R8 and a Corvette, a bunch of stuff. And every day for like a week or two, I drove a different supercar, and my neighbors were probably like, "What the like? Who is this guy?" But in total, I think I spent probably like $6,000 or something doing that, and it got it out of my system, right? And by the end of it, I realized, you know what, supercars are kind of fucking annoying. Like I'm kind of a tall guy, I don't fit in them that good. They're kind of cramped. There's all this annoying shit. You got to be worried about where you park them and blah blah blah. So like the reality wasn't as good as what I was thinking about. So that's one thing is you should rent the fancy bougie experiences. Yeah, take your girl out to the $1,000 dinner. See what that is. See what it's like to eat $1,000 dinner and be served wine, and the guy gives you the cork, and you pretend to smell it like you know what the fuck that means. Do that. You should do that, right? Or like fly first class if you've never flown first class. Rent the experience, right? I think that's totally a valid and good use of capital, especially if it gets out of your system. The other thing, the bigger picture stuff here is what's important in life, right? And after having a little bit of money and a little bit of security and financial independence for a while, I can tell you that like the most important shit in life is it's just other people. It's just like time with your family. It's going to the bar with your friends and having a couple drinks, and or going out to a nice meal with people that you like and people you can talk to, and those things are not that expensive, right? So those are the things I would prioritize much more over a Mercedes or a Rolex or something that is to impress strangers. That shit is meaningless. Those are like old baby boomer status symbols. You don't need them. If you can easily afford them, sure, fine. I'm not shaming anybody for having them. Like I have some of that shit too, and it's fun. But you don't need it. Like don't prioritize it. the thing that you should prioritize is your time, buying your time back from, basically debt slavery. So the first second you can do that comfortably into the future, you should do that. Buy your time back. Your time is so scarce, it's so valuable, and it's dissipating every day, right? Time with your family, time with your children, time with on the things that are meaningful to you. What are your passions? What are you doing? The minute you can buy that back, buy that back. That's my biggest piece of advice. And the other stuff, the status symbols and whatever, don't even worry about it. It doesn't matter. If you get rich enough one day to afford all of them, cool. It's great. But like I can tell you, like a Toyota Camry is like a great car. It's like totally fine. You know.
It gets you from point A to point B, and I think
Mhm.
that's great advice. Yeah, I mean, we have a saying in Miami, right? I can't. I don't know if it's appropriate to say it, but basically, if you can fly it, if you can drive it, and if you can fill in the blank, lease it or
Yeah.
rent it.
Rent it.
So yeah. Anyways, dude. So Trump, Trump got elected. I
Killing it.
think I think it was a positive for the industry. But right before he was about to be inaugurated, I think that Friday, he launches the Trump coin, the
Yep.
meme coin. And I think a lot of people in the community were disappointed. And I would say, I think two things could be true at the same time, right? Which is it's undeniable that the Trump administration is positive and has been positive for our industry, but it is a shitcoin at the end of the day. And I
Yeah.
think it was positive too that he freed Ross, right? I think a lot of Bitcoiners are having trouble, like, essentially, like, juggling the two. Like they
Yeah.
can't see that two things could be true at the same time. So I want to get your opinion on that. Trump coming in, the Trump administration, Ross being freed, and of course Trump coin.
So yeah, I mean, Trump coin, what a scam. Like what a grift, like what a shit coin, like all those things completely true. Like fuck that coin and the people that are promoting it, which is Trump. Um so number one. Number two, so far I like what Trump is doing. I think he's doing a great job, and I think, both things can be true. I like the job he's doing as a president. I think he's just a million times better than the old regime, the outgoing regime. I think we actually have a lot of hope for, sort of a golden age during Trump's run, and if JD Vance or whomever can win after that, and we can continue the restoration project of America, I think that's extremely hopeful. And Americans basically stood up in one voice and declared, like, the media was trying to brainwash them and psyop them, et cetera, tell them they're horrible, evil racists. And, everybody in the country was like, no, we're MAGA. We're all MAGA. Like, this is MAGA country, bro. We're giving Trump a mandate to do what he wants because we like Trump and we like, the things he's talking about. And by the way, like, nobody, it's the greatest political comeback in modern political history. I've never seen anything quite like it. And I think a lot of us started the play. 8 years ago, 9 years ago, we were like, "Yeah, this fucking Trump guy, Jesus Christ, he's so annoying," and he's such a con man, and like, and some of that is still true. Like, he still kind of acts like a used car salesman with this stuff, like the shitcoin or whatever. But over the years, I think I've been inspired by his tenacity and grit. And when he stood up after getting shot in the
Mhm.
face and screamed, "Fight, fight, fight!" everybody in the country was like, "Yeah, who are we as Americans? What is our national identity? Well, we're strong and we fight. And if you tell us we're not allowed to do XYZ thing, our response to you is fuck you." Like, that's our response. Like, if we're not harming anybody, we should be allowed to do what we want, and that is the thing that unites Americans, right? And we're from all religious cultures and backgrounds and ethnicities and et cetera. But the number one thing that unites us is if we're not harming anybody, we can do what the fuck we want, and we should be allowed to do what the fuck we want. So I think there's a lot more freedom and permission during the Trump reign. Things are getting fixed. That's great. I think the stuff like the SBR is coming. So some of the campaign promises, like Ross, he made good on his campaign promise. There were a lot of people on Twitter being like, he's not going to do it. Oh, he backstabbed us already, right? And then like, Ross got a full pardon and full unconditional pardon, like, which is way better than clemency. So like, I think it was worth the extra 6 hours to wait. I think Ross is happy with the outcome. So yeah, I mean, all those things are true at once. It's like I don't think you can be a child about any of this. You have to be nuanced and say, what is the Trump administration giving us versus what the old regime was giving us, which was Operation Choke Point 2.0, a direct attack on our freedoms and liberties as Bitcoiners and as Americans, a horrible, awful censorship regime. And what is Trump going to give us? I think Trump's going to give us more freedom, more permission, et cetera. But we do have to be on guard for things like a Patriot Act 2.0. It's not a panacea. I'm not bending the knee to Trump. Trump works for me. He works for you. He works for us. I don't put any politician above me. These people are servants. They are civil servants. It's important we never forget that. They work for us. We don't work for them. Doesn't matter who they are. But bullish on America.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Bullish on America. Went through a very dark phase, and like I'm so like Hodl. I'm first generation, so I'm originally from Venezuela, and I saw the country being one of the wealthiest countries in South America to
Yeah.
essentially, you know, being one of the poorest failed state because of collectivism. And I saw it happening in slow motion. And a lot of people were not awakened to that reality, and it's quite scary. And again, we got this. It's not a perfect happy ending, but it was incredible what happened. It's what you said. Like he the legal cases against him, the assassination attempt, his first term was, you can say, it was the whole Russiagate hoax. Like it was like ridiculous, like how much they tried to stop him. So I agree. I feel hope, and I don't think people quite realize how close we were, to going in a very, very different direction as a country. I think I tweeted this out the other day, and since you're the master of X and Noster, I want you to review it. But I basically said something along the lines of, where is it here? If Trump hadn't had won, he would have been sent to jail for life. They would have kept attacking our industry, shut down X, and Ross would still be in prison. Do you understand yet?
Yeah. I think that's true.
So, yeah, man. So, dude, what are you the most excited about for the next 5 to 10 years? Uh, Bitcoin's obviously grown up. It's not what it was, in the early days. It's gone into kind of mainstream consciousness, mainstream traditional finance. Now they're talking about a strategic Bitcoin reserve. What do you anticipate for the next 5-10 years? What are you the most excited about?
Man, good question. I think I'm the most excited about having all the cool people be rich. I'm excited about people who are liberty minded, tech forward, um, strong cultural values, which all make up like the Bitcoin maximalist community. I'm excited about having those people have money and seeing what projects they fund and presiding as sort of the capital allocators of the American Restoration Project. So I think that America is moving into this sort of this golden age, which probably will look much more like the early 1800s, or the late 1800s, than it will look like anything we saw in the 20th century. And I think that it's going to produce outsized wealth in a way that is destabilizing to some people's worldviews, but that I'd rather have the wealth in the hands of capital allocators who have a strong cultural focus. Because most Bitcoiners are culture warriors, right? So like I'd rather have it in the hands of people who have a strong technological and cultural focus, because I think reinvigorating American culture is going to be key to our continued success and to things like the colonization of space, and human beings becoming a Kardashev type 1 civilization. So those things are all extremely exciting to me, and I obviously want the money in the hands of private industry and not in the hands of the government. There will be a big fight about that
Absolutely.
between the government and the hodlers. New rules will be set. Elite, you know, decorum is all about rulemaking. Who can be within the elite circle and who has the ability to make rules? The Bitcoiners are coming to it from the framework of we would like a fair, balanced rule set for all enforced by machines, codified, in code. And the current fiat elites are coming to it in the sense that like we would like to decree things from on high. And I think that that is a battle that they're going to lose, but it's going to be uh, not fun while we're fighting it out. So I think the battle between the new elites and the old elites happen. You see capital allocation of Bitcoiners that starts to make meaningful impact in your society. Bitcoin price goes sky high. More nation states adopt Bitcoin. Bitcoin becomes sort of a pseudo reserve asset of the world. It's not quite acting as the reserve asset yet, but it will soon. Yeah, all of those things will
Yeah,
occur.
I mean, and fascinating. One of the things that really stuck out to me, Hodl, which was I don't think people have. I mean, Bitcoiners, of course, know this, but I don't think people have fully understood the implications of what happens when a percentage of society starts to opt out of the local sovereign currency and starts opting into Bitcoin, and what that will do for kind of the political dynamics of society. Because I think the way that society is currently structured is like the idea of wealth redistribution on a mass scale. And when I say wealth redistribution, I don't only mean wealth redistribution via taxation, but I also mean wealth redistribution via inflation.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's all with the justification is to reach equality this, equality that. But to reach equality, you essentially need to take wealth from one group of people to give it to other group of people. And I think people have been conditioned to live in that society for a very, very long time. And now here comes a technology that I don't want to get into the discussion of the income tax. Maybe we can, but it takes away the ability to do that for governments because it takes away their ability to tax via monetary debasement.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to rub people a very wrong way when they come to government, which a lot of people in society see as this omnipresent godlike institution or figure, and all of a sudden government can't do those things. It's actually private individuals that could do those things. Actually, the power is in the hands of the entrepreneurs. The power is in the individual in the hands of wealthy Bitcoin owners. It's not so much in the hands of government. And the traditional kind of voting mechanism to see who gets control of the money printer is not as effective anymore. And people can't just vote for free things like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you were talking about when you were saying, how the dynamics are going to change and potentially some people are going to be let down?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot there to unpack. I think there's nothing that Bitcoin does to prevent sovereigns from printing. But Bitcoin's existence acts as a check and balance on that printing. Because if people don't want to be devalued, they don't have to be devalued anymore. So different regimes are going to tackle this in different ways. And I think that the worst way you could possibly go about it would be to impose strict capital controls, because a law is only as good as your ability to enforce that law, and it's going to be really goddamn hard for you to prevent people from keeping words in their head. Okay, so that's probably not something that you have the ability to do. So your enforcement of that action will be minimally effective at best. The best thing that could happen is that you essentially respect encryption powered individuals, sovereign individuals, Bitcoiners, and others who want to take sovereignty over their own personal financial life and property, and you negotiate with them in order to come to some sort of agreement in which you keep more wealth in your society, right? So it's like sort of this broad collectivist negotiation. And then also you have to rein in your spending. So you can't say, "Hey, we are tyrants who steal. Give us all your money." that's just that's like something you could have done in the 20th century, but you can't do it any longer. It just doesn't work anymore because we have encryption powered individuals who can say, "No, where's your coins? I burned them." What do you mean you burned them? They don't exist anymore. Sorry. Like, what are you going to get out of me? I can just delete the money. There's nothing you can stop me from doing that. Like, it's a situation where it's like you have a gun pointed at my head, but I have my hand on the grenade, so I'll blow us all up, right? Metaphorically speaking. Um, if you're trying any other time in life when you kill somebody, you can take their property. Not true in Bitcoin. Like, Bitcoiners can self delete the property. So that's an interesting new wrinkle in enforcement. I think basically you have to respect the people that can do that.
And in
If there's
politics too, it's because Hodl, it completely changes the dynamics of politics as well. Because
Yeah,
if individuals are basically like, it's what you said, it's like, hey, keys are gone forever. Like, you can't have it, or you can memorize 12 words, you can cross a border, go to where you're treated best. It's a forcing function on society. That's the way I see it.
100%. I think that yeah, I think that's just true, and I think that if you treat sovereign individuals the way that the Democratic regime, the Biden-Harris regime treated them over the last 4 years, you're going to see capital flee your shores, and you're going to see yourself materially impoverished as Bitcoin eats the sort of monetary premium of the world. So like the people that hold the monetary premium of the world are important people to make partnerships with. They're important people to you don't have to like as a sovereign individual. I'm not saying like the government needs to bend to my will, right? Like I think I believe in consensus within Bitcoin. I believe in consensus of the governed, but I do also believe that we're not serfs, and I need my voice heard loud and clear, right? So it's like we need to have a respectful negotiation and dialogue um, between us and the powers that be. And some states are going to get this correct. I'm hopeful on America, obviously, and some states are going to get this really wrong, like we're just really wrong. Venezuela is probably not going to do well,
Yeah, 100%. But that's the beauty of the states. It's the beauty of the way that the U.S. is structured, right?
Yeah,
New York and California want to have fun staying poor. People just move to Texas and Florida, right? So like, there's that like there's like competition between the states, and it kind of allows that. And Hana, I have a question for you.
hit me.
If you were to orange pill one historical figure, could be
Mm,
any person, any moment in time. Maybe you have a favorite. I'm pretty sure you have a favorite. Who would it be and why?
Let me think about this. I mean, it wouldn't make sense to go back and orange pill like Genghis Khan, because he would just be like, "What am I going to do with fake money, like internet money? What? Like, it doesn't make sense." Can you bring me horse meat and freaking swords? Like, right? So you got to pick somebody from the modern era, I think. Because like I'm gonna orange pill Jesus, and he's gonna be like, "What am I gonna do with this? What am I gonna do with this?" So let's think. Who from the modern era would be most interesting to orange pill? I would have liked to see what I would have really liked to see what Steve Jobs had said and done
Oh,
about Bitcoin. It's curious because he hated open source, and Bitcoin is the epitome of open source. But I'd like to think he would have understood it well. So I don't know. Maybe there could have been a really dope hardware wallet, secure enclave within um, the iPhone. Who knows? Would have been
yeah,
interesting. Maybe he would go ham on the treasury. He would be like,
yeah.
he would have done the first micro strategy, maybe.
You think so?
Or maybe he would have been our enemy. I don't know what would have happened. Like, I think there's a non-trivial chance he would have been a hardcore enemy of the community.
Oh
Because
man.
traditionally he didn't do well with open source development. Yeah.
Oh man. No, it's true. It's true. But yeah, I think that's an excellent, just because of it's someone in the modern era, like a phenomenal entrepreneur, historical entrepreneur, definitely changed things. And it would have been interesting to see uh how he would have reacted to Bitcoin 100%. All right,
Yep.
man. Well, we are getting to the top of the hour, and I do want to be respectful of your time. Let me ask you this final question.
Hey, man.
What piece of advice would you give to hodlers going into 2025 with the caveat of Bitcoin performing the way that we all think it's going to perform, using the meme that I used in the very beginning that you created, 3 green, 1 red?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to people?
Yeah, good question. I think the most important advice going into bull market years is probably there's no time machine to being an OG. Okay. So what happens is, I think I cribbed this from Francis Poyet, who runs Bull Bitcoin. People get here and they finally understand Bitcoin. They get orange pilled, and they say to themselves, "Fuck, I really should have been here 8 years ago, and I should have 10 Bitcoin instead of 1 Bitcoin. How do I get to 10?" And then they go, "Ooh, I'm going to take a hell of a bunch of leverage." And they think that sort of leverage is this like time machine you can travel back to and become an OG. And 99% of the people that do that will end up with no Bitcoin. So it's a lot better to have 1 Bitcoin than 0 Bitcoin. And if you take a lot of leverage, you're playing with fire. This warning is like self-selecting, because the people that are going to take leverage are going to do it anyway. But I would be really, really hesitant, especially if it's your first cycle and you don't know what you're doing, of playing around with any amount of leverage, any. So just be careful with that. I think there are, you could maybe do smart, intelligent debt strategies that are, um, uncorrelated from Bitcoin. So the closer you get to Bitcoin specific leverage, like you're taking leverage on an exchange, that's probably the worst thing you could possibly do. And then the further away you go, like you're doing like a reverse, like a HELOC on your house or something, or like a unsecured personal loan. It's still not, you're not like safe. There's not no risk, but it's probably better than doing like, actual hardcore 100x leverage trading on the Bitcoin exchanges. So yeah, be careful with just don't get out over your skis. You want to go slow and steady, and this is a turtle race. um, and at the end of the day, Bitcoin's a war of attrition, so the people that are here for the longest amount of time are gonna win.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Hodl, always an honor to have you on the show, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do. Huge fan of your work, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me, buddy. Keep crushing on the pod.
Appreciate it.